In the case of Lucy Letby, many people have remarked that there were no warning signs, that this was your average nurse living an average life with an unremarkable past. However, in this video, I'm going to take you through some instances that I believe show Lucy Letby's seemingly bizarre or downright inappropriate behaviour towards the parents of the children she harmed and or killed. So let me give you a little bit of background concerning the case of baby C. It was the prosecution's case that the 5-day-old baby C, a boy, had been injected with air through a nasogastric tube into his stomach, causing him to go into cardiac arrest. Another nurse, Sophie Ellis, was looking after baby C. She fed him and left the nursery only to hear the alarm go off a few minutes later. When Ellis came back to the nursery, she found Letby as the only person in the room, standing beside his cot. Letby was the designated nurse to a baby in a separate room whom her shift leader had told her to focus on. The shift leader, who cannot be named for legal reasons, testified that she had to keep pulling Letby from the family room as baby C was dying. The following is the statement given by child C's father. The family were taken into a room where there were two nurses there, one of whom the father has since been able to identify as Lucy Letby. The father and mother took turns holding child C, quote, as we knew he wasn't going to make it. He remembers one of the nurses administering morphine to child C. At regular intervals, the nurses came in to check on their welfare. A hand and footprints were taken of child C, along with toys that were cot-side. The father said he and the mum looked after child C in that room, quote, we just wanted to cuddle him and make sure he was pain-free. The nurse came in and said something along the lines of, you said your goodbyes, now do you want me to put him in here? A basket. The mum said, he's not dying yet, and the nurse backtracked. We remember being really shocked by this. Let's now take a look at the text messages Lucy Letby exchanged with a colleague the following morning. Letby messaged a colleague, quote, parents sat with child C in the family room, persuaded them to have hand and footprints but they just wanted to go home. The colleague responds, that is so sad, don't know what to say. Letby replies, there are no words, it's been awful. The colleague responds, it's a really tough week, especially for you. The conversation ends at 10:12 AM. Let's now take a more detailed look at what the shift leader actually said in court regarding having to tell Lucy Letby on more than one occasion not to go in the family room. The nurse explained she asked Lucy Letby to focus back on a baby in nursery room 3, but Letby went into the family room a few times. The nurse recalled asking Lucy Letby to leave the family to Melanie Taylor. The nurse tells the court Letby did not have any designated duties to be in the family room and told her, quote, more than once not to be in the family room. A brief background to the case of baby D. The prosecution alleged that Letby tried to kill baby D twice before succeeding on the third attempt by injecting air into her bloodstream. Giving evidence, the girl's mother said that Letby had been hovering around the family hours before the baby collapsed. On June 21st, 2015, swipe data showed Lucy Letby arriving at the neonatal unit at 7:26 PM. The handover note showed Lucy Letby was one of the nurses on duty that night, with a different nurse being the designated nurse for child D in room 1. Letby was a designated nurse for two other babies in the same room. At this time, another nurse was looking after child B in room 3 for that night. The court heard child B had suffered a non-fatal collapse earlier that month. Further observations for child D are documented throughout that night shift until after 1 AM. Let's now take a look at a statement given by child D's mother. The mother said she had seen Lucy Letby before when she went to see child D in the neonatal unit at around 7 PM. The mother recalls as she was wheeled into the room, Lucy Letby was, quote, hovering around, not doing much with child D. She had a clipboard and she was looking at machinery. I didn't understand what she was doing. The mother asked if child D was fine, to which Lucy Letby said she was. Lucy Letby just stuck around and was just watching over us. The mother said she asked for Lucy Letby to just go away and leave us in privacy. Shortly after midnight, Letby attacked child D and he subsequently died. These are the text messages exchanged between Letby and a colleague the following morning. They start with Lucy Letby at 8:36 a.m. We had such a rubbish night. Our job is just far too sad sometimes. The colleague replies, "No, what happened?" Letby responds, "We lost child D." The colleague replies, "What? But she was improving. What happened? I can't believe you are on again. You are having such a tough time." Letby replies, "How do sick babies get through and others get to die so unexpectedly?" Her colleague responds, "We just don't have magic wands." Letby replies, "I think there is an element of fate involved. There is a reason for everything." The background to the case of baby E. The court was told that Letby was the assigned nurse to care for baby E and his twin brother baby F, born 10 weeks early. The prosecution said that their mother interrupted Letby attacking baby E when she visited her sons in the unit shortly after 9 p.m. on August 3rd. She came in to find baby E distressed and bleeding from his mouth. Letby turned to her and said, "Trust me, I'm a nurse." Baby E suffered significant blood loss later in the evening and died in the early hours of the following day. Let's now take a look at the statement given by child E's mother. By August 3rd, she said the twins were great, doing really well. We were absolutely thrilled that both boys were doing so well, and we couldn't have asked for any more than that. They were both progressing. The father was commuting to and from the hospital at this time, and on August 3rd he had gone home to prepare the house as it was imminent that the babies were going to be transferred to another hospital and she would be able to go home. She said he left the hospital at around 5 p.m. At that time she was having skin-to-skin contact with child E, which ended at 6:30. She said she went up to the postnatal ward to express breast milk and have something to eat between 7 and 8:30 p.m. She then took the express breast milk straight down to the neonatal unit where her twins were. She said she arrived there a touch before 9 o'clock. The mother had drawn a plan of the neonatal unit layout as she remembered it to police. She tells the court she had gone into room 1 where the twins were, as was Lucy Letby, the only other adult in the room besides the mum. She said she could hear her son crying, and it was, quote, like nothing I'd ever heard before. The mum walked to the incubator to see blood coming out of child E's mouth and panicked as she believed something was wrong. Lucy Letby was at the workstation at the time. She said she heard crying, a sound which shouldn't have come from a tiny baby. I can't explain what that sound was, it was horrendous. It was screaming more than crying. She said she heard it in the corridor in the unit itself and entered the unit through the door where the twins were. Lucy Letby was, quote, busy doing something but wasn't near child E. The mum said she asked Lucy Letby why child E was bleeding and what was wrong. She said Letby replied the feeding tube was rubbing the back of the throat and that would have caused the blood. The mum said she accepted that explanation but was concerned about it. The mum said Letby, quote, told her to go back to the ward and she did what she was told as Letby was in authority and knew better than me and I trusted her completely. She said the registrar was on his way and if there was a problem someone would ring up the postnatal ward. She said she accepted that explanation and returned to the postnatal ward. Upon her return, she rang her husband as, quote, she knew something was very wrong. I knew I needed to speak to him and tell him. Now in court, Lucy Letby disputed the version of events put forward by the mother of child E. However, there were telephone records which backed up the version and account given by child E's mother. Take a listen to the following. The court hears the telephone records including timings were obtained. The call to her husband was made at 9:11 p.m. and lasted 4 minutes and 25 seconds. She said she rang her husband about her concerns and remained on the postnatal ward. Let's now take a look at the Facebook searches Lucy Letby conducted in relation to child E and F. The court has shown evidence that Letby searched for the mum and dad of child E and child F on Facebook 9 times in the following months, the vast majority for the mother. The first of the searches was on August the 6th at 7:58 p.m, and one of the searches is at 11:26 p.m. on December 25th. The final 2 searches were made in January 2016. the last on January 10th at 11:03 p.m. Now in court, Nicholas Johnson KC, the prosecuting barrister, he kept saying to Lucy Letby, "Why do you keep searching for Child E's mother?" It's because she nearly caught you in the act, isn't it? You're checking up on your victims. And Lucy Letby said, no, I wasn't. We had a good relationship. And it's interesting that she searched 9 times in the following months for the parents of Child E, the vast majority for the mother. Bearing in mind what we've just heard here, that the mother of Child E almost caught her in the act. The background to baby I. The court was told that Letby had tried to kill baby I, a girl, on 4 separate occasions before eventually succeeding. On October 24, 2015, the mother had a missed call from the hospital. After ringing back, she was told to get to the hospital as soon as she can. When they arrived, they found staff, including Letby, were trying to resuscitate Child I. That had been going on for 20 minutes. After some time, the mother said to them, "You can't keep doing this anymore." Resuscitation efforts ceased and Child I was passed into the arms of the mother, and Child I died shortly afterwards. 2 nurses, including Letby, asked if the mother wanted to bathe Child I. While bathing, Letby was, quote, smiling and kept going on about how much she was present at Child I's first bath and how much Child I had loved it. "I wished she'd just stopped talking. I think eventually she realised it wasn't something we wanted to hear right now. I remember it was Lucy who packaged up Child I's belongings." After killing Child I, Lucy Letby then sent a sympathy card to the parents. One of her colleagues was attending the funeral, and Lucy Letby took a photograph of this sympathy card, which was later recovered by police on her mobile phone. The card reads the following: "There are no words to make this time any easier. It was a real privilege to care for Child I and to get to know you as a family. A family who always put Child I first and did everything possible for her. She will always be a part of your lives and we will never forget her. Thinking of you today and always, sorry I cannot be there to say goodbye. Lots of love, Lucy." The background surrounding the cases of baby L and baby M. In April 2016, Letby was told that she was being moved to cover more day shifts. Arian Powell, the unit manager, told her that this was not a punishment, but simply a way to give Letby more support in staffing numbers. This was untrue, however. The real reason was concern among consultants about her presence during the deaths and collapses of the previous months, most of which had taken place during night shifts. Almost immediately after her shift pattern was changed, collapses began occurring during the day. On April the 9th, baby L, a boy, and his twin brother baby M suffered collapses. In relation to Child M, the following item was recovered from Lucy Letby's property under her bed. The court is being shown a photograph of a paper towel which was used by Nurse Mary Griffith and other medics on the afternoon of April 9th to note the medicines given to Child M between 16:02 and 16:31. The nurse says everything on it would have had to have been recorded afterwards. The jury has just been shown a photograph of a blood gas report for Child M. This document was recovered from Lucy Letby's house in Chester when she was arrested in 2018. When questioned, Miss Letby denied the notes were taken as a souvenir and denied deliberately trying to harm Child M. Giving evidence, Nurse Mary Griffith said she was responsible for drawing up and checking the resuscitation drugs for Child M. She told the court the paper towel would have been on the resuscitation trolley and provided a record for doctors of what drugs had been given and when events unfolded. Mrs. Griffith said she recognised 2 of the entries for adrenaline administration were in her handwriting. Simon Driver prosecuting told the court the paper towel, along with a blood gas measurement report for Child M, were discovered in a Morrison shopping bag beneath a bed in the defendant's former address. Mr. Driver asked Mrs. Griffith, "Have you ever taken a blood gas record home with you?" Mrs. Griffith said, "No." Mr. Driver went on, "Have you ever taken home with you the contemporaneous notes for medications given during a resuscitation?" "No," repeated the witness. The background to the case of baby P. Less than 15 minutes after the death of his brother, baby P was attacked with an injection of air via the nasogastric tube. As baby P was collapsing, Letby is alleged to have told a consultant, "He's not leaving here alive, is he?" The prosecution said this was her happily predicting something she knew was going to happen. Letby was said to have made the absolutely shocking comment ahead of a planned transfer of the infant to another hospital. The youngster continued to deteriorate as his heart rate and blood oxygen levels dropped and died less than 4 hours later before the move from the Countess of Chester Hospital could take place. Recalling the conversation with Letby, a consultant who could not be identified for legal reasons told the court, "I just said the transport team are going to be here soon," almost thinking out loud. Staff nurse Lucy Letby then said, "He's not leaving here alive, is he?" Which I found absolutely shocking at the time. I said, "Don't say that," and left the room. Later, the consultant said she remembered another unusual event involving Letby after child P had been pronounced dead. She said, quote, "I went to speak to the parents. Myself and Lucy Letby were there. I remember feeling, I don't know how to face them or how to say this. I told them that child P was going to need a post-mortem. Staff nurse Letby was behind me, and one of the things I found unusual was she was almost very animated. She was saying to the parents, 'Do you want me to make a memory box like I did for Child O yesterday?' I remember thinking, this is not a new baby. This is a dead baby. Why are you so excited about this?" I found that very inappropriate, the way it was said.
It was March time, so it was 30 weeks or so. Finished work, and on the day we'd gone in to get monitored, and they all came rushing in, and it was an emergency C-section, and it was done within like 10 minutes. It was exciting, but it was nervous because you didn't hear a cry or anything. You don't hear anything, so it was a bit quite shocking. And even though I could see he'd gone to the other side, I'd sent Alan, my husband, over to take a picture, and the oxygen hadn't been flowing because there'd been a placenta eruption. So he obviously didn't look like himself, so they had to take him straight off. So I just seen him as they went out, and then I didn't see him later. He was born at 10 to 3, and I'd already seen him about midnight that night.
And Lucy Letby was working on the unit at the time. What dealing did you have with her?
So relaying the information to my husband of literally of what the doctor had told me that morning, of him, how he was getting on. Like I've said, she wasn't actually ACE's nurse, so she was covering somebody's break. Overheard our conversation and felt the need to come over and tell us that I'm sorry overhearing a conversation, but I don't like parents getting their hopes up too much because you never quite know what could happen. Now, as a parent, I absolutely erupted and was like furious, like, how dare you take that hope away from me? And then as a professional, I'm saying to the matron and to herself that it was completely inappropriate to take somebody. You can't speak to people like that. I'm there when people get news terminal illnesses. Never once have I ever said, oh well, I wouldn't hold out too much hope, because everyone needs hope.
Do you think because you made that complaint about Letby, the next day she took out her revenge?
It made me feel quite guilty because there's 2 babies or possible in there, including my son, who could have been victims of hers. So I feel guilty a little bit that I may have drove her onto it or drove something to happen, a bit of anger. You just feel so lost. So I don't know, really, just it's horrific to think of because you wouldn't think that nobody would be capable of that.
People had their suspicions.
Definitely, way before Asa was born. So Asa was born in March 2016, and when alarms would go off during the night especially, there would be a phrase that people would use, colleagues that I know have used and are sort of commenting on, I wonder if Lucy's working tonight.
What's your reaction now you know the guilty verdict?
Then a guilty verdict is brilliant for the people who have got some sort of justice. It doesn't bring anyone back, but it gives some people some answers, but it leaves many people who haven't had any answers. So that needs to happen, that needs to be looked into.
People like you?
Like me. There's many probably like me. And I'm hoping that me doing this is going to help somebody, and then for them to come and think maybe mine needs looking into as well. because they've got every right for them to be looked into. And if it doesn't come out and they're okay and they weren't involved, then great. But it needs to be looked at.
A mum whose baby girl was cared for by Lucy Letby has revealed a sickening handwritten note left by the serial killer nurse before her child was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. The woman fears her daughter, who was born prematurely in September 2014, may have been left brain damaged by Letby and is calling for police to investigate. Following the guilty verdict, she unearthed a Polaroid picture taken by Letby of her baby sleeping in a hospital cot with a feeding tube detached from her nose, dated October 25, 2014. On the back of the image are the haunting words, "Caught in the act." The baby's name is redacted, deciding she is a big girl now and doesn't need to be tube fed anymore. The mum, who wishes to remain anonymous, told the newspaper of the day she and the baby's father were left the picture note by Letby. Its words later rendered horrifically ironic by the nurse being caught herself and brought to justice for deliberately harming infants in her care. She said, quote, "When we came in, Lucy was leaving a night shift and said, 'I left a little present in her cot for you.' I've always known it was her that wrote it because I put it up in a frame afterwards. When she was arrested, I immediately took it back down and put it in a drawer, and I've been unable to put it back up since." The mum revealed that the day after Letby left the note, her baby girl ended up at the centre of a medical drama. Initially, her daughter had been making positive progress on the neonatal unit and was moved to a nursery ward where she continued gaining strength. Having reached 5 pounds, her parents were preparing for her to be discharged when they arrived one morning shortly after Letby had been on shift to find alarms ringing and their daughter's health rapidly deteriorating. The mum said, quote, "I screamed for them to open up the incubator to get an oxygen mask on her. She had to have a lumbar puncture, then was put back in intensive care. No infection was found." Around the time she was born, the woman's daughter had a brain scan and the results were clear, she said. However, 8 months later, in May 2015, she visited a consultant after realising her daughter was struggling to sit upright. An MRI scan confirmed that she had brain damage with cerebral palsy. The parent continued, "There's never been an explanation. She was always being taken care of by Lucy or the head nurse had her. It was very rarely any other nurses. You sit all day looking at their incubator and don't really question anything. Nobody questions anything. I would sit and chat with Lucy." One time, when she was sat opposite me looking after another premature baby, she told me about going to university and her parents coming from Hereford. It was all just so normal. She was just a lot quieter than the other nurses though. Where the other nurses would be chatting away, she was more of a loner. That was the only thing that seemed different about her, but I just put that down to her being very quiet. Prior to Letby's first arrest, the mum received a cryptic text from another nurse at the hospital who had also cared for her daughter, saying that she was going to see a familiar face in the papers and, quote, "not to believe everything you hear." The medic, understood to be good friends with Letby, also allegedly said that being arrested is not the same as being charged. The mum later got in contact with police to voice her concerns over Letby taking care of her daughter and the lack of an explanation for her condition. She said, quote, "Their first response was that it wasn't in the time frame they were looking at. When they widened the date slightly, I emailed again, but they said it's not part of our investigation and we suggest you speak to her consultant. I can't get my head around how the police can put a timescale on it. To me, if you're a serial killer, you're not one for a certain amount of time. How can they disregard all those babies just up to those time dates? It doesn't make sense. I feel that police looked at the babies that had died, not the ones that have cerebral palsy, brain damage and other things." On the day she found out Letby was guilty, the mum said she burst into tears. She continued, "All the hairs were sticking up on my arms. I just brought the photo out and read the back of it thinking, it can't actually be. Why would she take a picture of a child with a feeding tube hanging out of its nose? If that ever happened, nurses wouldn't leave it. They'd put it straight back. The feeding tube would go down her nose and into her stomach. That's how she was fed. In the picture, the plaster should be taped to her nose to keep it on, but it isn't. It's not a nice photo, and I don't know why anyone would take a picture of it. None of the other nurses left notes on the ward either. It's awful, looking back at it now." Referring specifically to the, quote, "caught in the act" part of the note, she said, "It's shocking. It feels like a sick joke. That's why I can't put it up, and I never will." Her comments come as another mum, Emily Morris, calls for police to investigate the death of her 1-month-old son Alvin, who passed in 2013 and was also cared for by Letby. According to the BBC, the nurse wrote a message in his christening book which read, "To Alvin with love on your special day." A handwriting expert who also compared evidence produced at Letby's trial has confirmed that in her opinion the nurse wrote both notes. Comparing the message about Alvin to that of the unsigned note on the Polaroid left in 2014, Tracy Trussell, a consultant graphologist for Handwrite, said, quote, "There can be no doubt that the same author is responsible for writing both notes. The telltale clues, the spatial arrangement is the same, the size, slant, stretched letters all identical. The I's are all dotted but slightly to the right, and the oversized letter S's penned significantly larger than the other letters." Although there was an initial police investigation into why the baby girl was left with cerebral palsy, no further action was taken against Letby. The parents are now seeking further recourse in light of her whole life jail term. Karen Cathcart, medical negligence partner at Devonshire Claims, said, quote, "It's unclear at this stage why the police did not pursue this case, but it's clear there needs to be further investigation. This girl has been impacted for life and the family deserve answers." While the Letby case only included 14 cases, it's an unfortunate fact that there are likely many more families who have been impacted by her actions, and we are seeing a large number of people who are now seeking further answers. As this legal battle unfolds, we can only hope that the truth will prevail and that measures will be taken to prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future. We urge anyone who may have suffered as a result of Letby's actions to seek legal advice immediately. Cheshire Police said they are currently reviewing other cases related to infants under Letby's care, a task being undertaken by a task force of officers operating under the name Operation Hummingbird. A spokeswoman for the force said, quote, "We're in the process of reviewing other cases and are unable to comment on specific babies' families at this stage and whether we are investigating further or not, but when we're in a position to say more, we will."